Hello and welcome to OctopusDo. I'm Christian Ross, and today's project is going to be working with the new Wisdom Warrior Loom by Julia Avalar, which is a very beautiful long loom, which is going to be perfect for making belts, longer items such as chokers, hat bands, things like that. And so we're just going to try it out. I think the first project I like to make would be a wrap bracelet because those are a lot of fun. And so I'm going to just get it all set up. Let's get started. Here's what you're going to need for the project. You're going to need your Jewel Loom Wisdom Warrior, the oversized loom. I'm using a 1.5 millimeter cord from Leather Cord USA, Fireline or Wildfire, a needle of course. Then you're going to need the beads. So I'm going to poke around here and see what kind of beads look good for this project, and we'll get started. So I found these small barrel shaped beads, and they look like some sort of jasper, almost a maybe a bloodstone, but I'm really not sure what they are, but they're really pretty, and I know that they are a natural stone bead, so I'm going to use those. I have 3 strands here, and we'll see how far that gets me on my wrap. So the first thing that I need to do is actually warp the loom. And so I'm going to take my cord and roll out a bunch. So I'm just going to go from one side of the loom to the other, and I will measure that and see how much cord that takes. I just take the folded in half piece of the leather here, and I'm going over the button in the back here. Sliding it over the top and just come down to the other side, and I'm going to wrap this around the other end. So I'm pulling it tight, just scooting over a few spaces there and wrapping around. And I will clip the end of my leather there. For that, I'm going to use my Xuron shears. So I could just tie off the end here, which would be very easy to do, but I'm going to use a new tool that I have recently started using that I'm in love with, and that is a binder clip. They're very handy. So this is what it looks like all set up. Again, I just have it looped around one end, have the entire thing strung, wrapped around this end, and then wrapped around the button and held in place with a binder clip. I'm good to go. Oh, I said I was going to measure that for you, so let me do that. So I have 30 inches of leather in one strip. And so I'm going to double that and say 60 inches, maybe add an inch or two just to have a little bit extra. And let's start weaving. So I'm going to start here because I can turn this end into the clasp, or I can cut that and make it a slide clasp. So I am going to start a little bit further down. And I have my Wildfire, and it's on my needle already. What I'm going to do is string my first bead. So I have my first bead, and I'm underneath my leather here, and I'm pulling my thread through, but I'm not going to pull the thread all the way out. Now this is not tied to the leather. Then, see, my thread is coming out underneath. I go around the leather on top. So this is like your regular loom projects, your regular seed bead loom projects, but it's like with one row. Now let's do that again. And the reason I'm leaving this long tail here is so that I can weave it back in when I'm done. Let me measure that tail so you know how much I've got left. Because what I'll do is I will take a needle on this when I've got a few more rows done. I'll put a needle on this and weave it back through. So this doesn't have to be exact, but the length of tail that I've left is 6 inches. I'm going to add another bead. And I pick one up, string that on, like so. Then I go underneath again. Pull it more snug. Then come back over the top and go back through and come out on top, like that. So I have 2 beads on there so far. Pick up the next one. String it on. Go underneath. And sew through on top. Basically what I'm doing here, basically I'm making a sandwich of the leather by the thread is going underneath the leather and through the bead, around the leather, back through the bead, and around the leather for the next one. So basically we're just going like this around the leather through a bead in the middle. I have 3 beads on so far. Now these 3 beads are quite a distance from the top of the loom. What I'm going to do now is slide those up. That way, that can be my clasp that goes around a button at the end. Then I'm going back and tightening up those 3 beads. I'm not going to bore you by having you watch me add more beads because it's the same technique from here on. I am just going to continue adding beads until I get this bracelet the length that I want it to be. And then we'll talk about how you finish it off and end everything, take it off the loom. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to keep beading. See you in a minute. Welcome back. So what I've done is completed the beaded part of my bracelet. What I've done is added beads all the way across, and I measured and have 21 inches from the button. So basically, I'll show you how I measured here. I've got have my flexible tape measure, and I just went from the bottom of the loop there, then all the way down and got 21 inches. All of this on one loom, which is really impressive. I didn't have to wrap around. It was all in this one length. So bear with me. I'm thinking of doing something a little different with the clasp, and if it works, it's going to be really cool. If not, I'll let you know and we'll go a different direction. Now what I need to do is secure this last bead and my thread. So I'm going to weave this back through a few rows before I trim it. So that way I don't have to add a knot. This is the end where I finished up. So I'm coming out on the top. So I go back underneath and go back through the hole that I've already gone through, but I want to come back on the bottom. So I've gone back through one bead, go down to the next one. Doesn't matter if I come out of the bottom or the top. I just know that if I come out of the top, like I just did with that one, when I wrap this around, I need to go to the bottom, because if I go to the top, then my thread will just go between those two beads, but I want it to wrap around the leather. Pull everything snug. That is 3 beads. Alright, I've gone through 10 beads and I'll stop there. I didn't have to go through that many, but I know that that is a decent number. I feel confident that that's not going to pull apart on me, so I'm just going to trim my thread there. Now I have to come back to the beginning of the bracelet where I left that 6 inches and do the exact same thing and weave that tail back through the first beads that I added. So I have to add a needle to this. Now I just weave this back in. Now everything is secure, so I can take my bracelet off of the loom. To do that, I just release this clip that I had added, unwind. I can bring this around and pull the end off. I have a nice long wrap bracelet, so I will test fit this. I dug through my supplies and I found an assortment of buttons, and I believe an antique brass is going to look great with these beads. I like that kind of waffle shape. And then I'm going back to my spool of leather because I'm going to use that to wrap everything together. Not quite sure how much leather I'm going to need to use, so I will start off with a piece 12 inches in length, which will probably be way too much. Now I take the end of this leather and I'm going to cut it at a diagonal. Roll it so that all the fibers are compressed. Then I am going to go up through the back of the button and then back down. Then I'm going to see how well this fits into the loop. So my loop is way too big for this button right now as it is. So I'm going to cinch it down just a little bit and then it will fit nicely. I'll show you how I plan on adding the button. So using the slide technique that I showed you in previous video, I am just laying the leather out like this, and I have the end of the cord I'm wrapping facing toward me, and then I'm just going to wrap around loosely, and I'm wrapping down toward me. And now I've gotten to the button part. So the button sits here. That's 4 wraps. So I need to go 3 more. And now, just like the slide clasp that I showed you before, I'm going to take the end and feed it back up through there. So it goes back up through all of the loops that I made, and then pull both ends tight. So now I have a knot around these 2 cords with a button on the front. Now I'm going to want this button to stay closer to the beads than this, but since I want it to stay, I'm going to add a little bit of glue. So I have my Bead On bead stringing glue. You can also use the GS Hypo Cement. It has that nice pointy tip. Put a drop here and just a little bit there, and then slide my knot down and even everything where I want it before everything dries. I can also take the time now to put a drop of glue here and here before I cut these pieces off. I will let that dry, but I can trim it a little bit now. I also have way too long of an end piece left over, so I cut that off, and it leaves me with about 3 inches past the end of my button. And just to make that pretty, I'm going to just tie little knots on the end. Now, to cinch this up, I'm going to use my third hand, my helping hand for this. It's just one of the many things that you could use. So I pinch one end of my loop here, and I'm just going to grab onto the side of the bracelet here, and then I'm going to tie my knot right there. Just going to use a little scrap here. So again, I have the end of that scrap facing toward me, and I wrap around down. And looks like I've got it around 5 times there. So I need to feed this end that I wrapped around 5 times back up through that tunnel. And pull that tight. Put a little bit of glue here, and then scoot it back down. And then I will take it out of the clips. Looking pretty good. I will put a drop of glue on either end and then trim it just a little bit. After the glue dries, I'll trim it much closer. There we go. I have a wrap bracelet. So this was really easy to do. The new loom made it very easy. And yeah, I'm just waiting for the glue to dry before I trim everything really close. But let's twirl it around and give it a look. What? What? Well, come talk to me. Come on. So, my cat boss here says, job well done. I hope you had fun with this project too. And just to give you a little bit of feedback here on the Wisdom Warrior Goddess Loom, Jewel Loom, I really liked working with this. The part that you didn't get to see is when I did all of the repetitions of adding all of the beads besides the first 3. So I had taken the loom, it's gotta go, taking the loom with me and hung out with Cat Boss here on the couch, and this was very comfortable to sit with it in my lap and weave back and forth. So I really look forward to using this more often. It's very sturdy, it's very intuitive, it feels good in my hands, and yeah, I really enjoyed working with it. So I look forward to a few more projects on this piece. I do hope that you enjoyed this project. If you did, give me a like. Don't forget to subscribe and click on notifications so that you won't miss the next video that's out. Until next time, now you know, go make something. Now the best part is I get to enjoy my tea and biscuit.